traditional way of marketing also doesn't work for me. Why can't you sell books at a Shisanya? Why can't you sell books at a bus stop? This is a story of resistance, number one. But it's also a story of resilience. And it's a story of love.
From the chapters I've read, you capture the village life so well. I felt like I was there.
If you read the story, you'll find that I use a lot of Tegela language terms. Tegela is a group of languages, Swati, Sindebele Sasenyagato, Silala, Isipaca, Siputi, and so on. Those languages are not recognized in South Africa except for Siswati.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of The People's Eye. My name is Sizo Samayende, your host as usual. Today we're talking books. I'm here with a prominent writer, a journalist, seasoned journalist for that matter, good writer for that matter, Lucas Ledwaba. Yeah, his name is known in the literature circles quite a lot. He has produced many books. I think the reason he's here today is because he has just released a new novel, The Sacred Hills. We're going to talk a lot about it and a lot about his life as a journalist, where he grew up and everything that you may need to know about him. Lucas Nrebelela Senyagato. Welcome.
Thank you, Sizwe, for inviting me to the People's Eye in the beautiful city of Mbombela. I truly appreciate the opportunity, and it's very good to be here.
Yeah. Okay. Look, man, we know you as a journalist. I mean, you've been a journalist for all your life. For me personally, when I grew up, I wanted to be like you. I still want to be like you. When I grow up, I want to be a journalist like you. I want to write like you. It's you and this other guy, Fred Kumalo. I mean, you've had a big influence in my life personally. I've never told you this before, but yeah, you are amongst the people that I follow who are writers, because I'm a budding writer myself. I have not written as many books as you have done. But let's start from the beginning, man. Where does it begin from you? Where do you grow up?
Okay. I think you are being very humble by saying you are a budding writer, because I have also been following your work for many years when you're with African Eye News, Sunday Times, and others. So I really appreciate the accolade and the words of encouragement. Lucas Ledwaba, I was born in Pretoria, at a place called Lady Selborne. I think most of us were born in the 70s, 60s, 50s, 40s in Pretoria. Were born in that hospital. It was run by the Anglican Church. Yeah. And my parents at that time, they were in the process of moving to Soshanguve Township from Makapanstad.
Okay.
In Northwest Province today. That time it was Western Transvaal. So as you know, the story of human beings is a story of migration. Yeah. My father was born in a place called Mashashane, west of Polokwane. That is where the Ledwaba clan comes from. Part of the Ledwaba clan comes from. Yeah. My mother was born in, her name was Maria Mutlape. She was born in Hendrina, on the farms there, a farm called Bankfontein. In Hendrina.
It's Mpumalanga, yeah.
Yes, so very interesting story. My father was a domestic worker. He was a kitchen boy, as they were called. He was staying at Mamelodi Hostel, and he was a hustler. He was also a photographer, a welder, dry cleaning agent. He met my mother during his work as a photographer, because as you can recall, under apartheid, there was the Separate Amenities Act.
Yes.
So there were parks for black people, So on Sundays, black people congregated at these parks.
Yeah.
Domestic workers, factory workers who were staying in town. And that's how my father met my mother. And I think they got married in 1966.
Okay.
Yeah. And they moved to a place called the Hopaneng, which is next to Bretts in the northwest, and then later Makapan, and then Toshangu. So I'm the fifth of 7 children.
Okay.
Yeah. So where does my writing start? I started writing before I went to school. I was very much in love with writing. And in my home, I'm very grateful to my parents. We were surrounded by books.
Oh, there were always books, yeah.
Always books. Reader's Digest, Pace, Drum, Post, newspaper, Rent Daily Mail, City Press, Sunday Times Extra.
Okay. Were they reading them, or they just brought them? I mean, in my case, I remember my father used to bring the Citizen newspapers because he was playing horses mostly from Joburg. Then he would come with a stack. Then I would start reading all those old newspapers back then. Yeah.
Very interesting. My mother never went to school at all. My father never went beyond primary school.
Yeah.
I think he finished in Standard 5 or what they called JC. I think it was Form 1.
Yeah, yeah.
So they really loved education and knowledge, but they also wanted to impress upon us, their children, the importance of education. That is why in our home, education came first. 7 children, we all matriculated, we all have a post-matric qualification from people who really never went to school, never finished school. And so my father was a reader. My mother was also a reader. Actually, I used to teach my mother to read when she was doing her learner's license.
Okay. Interesting.
And I used to sit with my mother and we go through the learner's license booklet and explain some of the things to her. And I was young at that time, 8, 9, 10 years old.
Oh, okay.
So that is where we come from. My brothers were readers. My sisters were readers. My sisters bought magazines. My brothers, newspapers, soccer magazines. I think you remember those days when magazines came out once a month. And when it comes out, everybody is waiting for his turn to hold the sports ace or soccer news and read. And we came from that environment. But also in the community, then people were reading. You know, we used to see Amak Rodman with the James Hadley Chase novel, Eskiam Patlele, African Writers series. People were reading on the bus. At the bus stop, people were reading a newspaper.
True.
On the bus, people were reading a magazine. So I'm very grateful that we grew up during that time when...
Before social media. Before smartphones.
And TV. Because that time, if there was a TV at home, they only switch it on at 6 o'clock. And then at 10 o'clock, it's off. Unless at the weekend, you can watch TV for until midnight.
Exactly. So you begin to enjoy writing at a young age yourself. Did you start with poetry? Well, what kind of writing did you learn to sharpen your skills?
I have never really been a poetry person. I love poetry. I love reading it. I've tried writing it, but I was writing about the world around me.
Okay.
My dog, my school, my grandmother. I used to interview my parents and ask them, where do you come from? How did you meet? You know, my mother was, hey, there's a hole, man. My grandmothers, I would ask them, why did you leave Mashashani to come to... obviously, some of the information they wouldn't want to give you. But I was fascinated to find out more. And then I would write. I had always had scribblers. Unfortunately, they got lost as we were moving, plays and so on. So I was never really a poetry person. I would write about things around me.
Oh, okay. But you finished school, you already knew that, look, what the career you wanted to pursue would be journalism. Did you already know that, or by chance or because you realize at some point that, look, it's easy for me to write and speak to people who like stories?
That created a very big problem for me because my father said, no child of mine is going to do that nonsense of journalism.
It's not a real job, actually.
Yeah, you want to be a drunkard, be moral and so on.
Yeah.
Because I think they grew up during the era of when black journalists were really suppressed, and
The
most
drum
of them
era.
the drum era. They tend to alcohol as a coping mechanism, as an escape. So I think in his head, even though my father was a photographer, he was exposed to journalism and journalists. He knew that this is not the kind of life he would wish for his children.
Yeah.
So it was a big problem for me because they said, hey, when you are very bright in school, you are always top of the class, you must do law. Although I loved law, but journalism has always been my first love.
Yeah.
So fortunately, it happened that I ended up in the field of journalism.
How did you convince your father to give you
No,
his
actually,
blessings?
I didn't, because my father passed away
Oh, okay.
just after I matriculated. A year or two after I matriculated, he passed away in 95. And I was studying business management, which I didn't even feel I felt it convincingly. Yeah. But at the time, I was also busy with football. I was trying to get into professional football.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I was playing football.
It's a
Two
story
things that
for
I loved
black
as a
boy.
child: football and books.
Okay.
So when other children were playing other games in the street, I would be kicking a ball against the wall.
Yeah.
If we were not playing a game, there was never a day that we didn't play football. I remember I had a friend, Dumile Sivia, who unfortunately passed away. So when it was time for training, so when we come from school, we go to football training, 4 o'clock. But we would go there 2:45 to practice and do other things. So, in the bushveld, in summer, around 3-4 o'clock, that's when you had thunderstorms. So then it rains. Yes. We got so upset. We go to a rock there because Soshanguve is a very hilly place. We'd go to a rock there and insult God.
To stop this rain so that you can.
Why now when we
play.
are supposed to go and play football?
Yeah.
So football was really, really part of us. It was what kept us together. In the community, we grew up in the 80s. It was a very difficult time in South Africa.
For sure.
Violence, political repression.
Yeah.
But there was this thing, this round thing, football. It just brought us together. There was a team right next to my house. There's a school, Mama Chianoga.
Yeah.
There was a ground there. There was a club called Liverpool, run by Braboni Chwene.
Yeah.
Without any sponsorship, without any support from anywhere. There were obviously probably more than 80 of us.
Yeah.
Under 10, under 12, under 14. Champ, Smirnoff League. And it brought us together. And people thought I was a good player. I was always knocking. When South Africa was readmitted to FIFA, I was always knocking on the junior national teams.
Yeah.
I was, I think it was 93, 92. I was I was put on standby, the under 20 national team.
Okay.
They were going to play in Botswana, and because we went for trials, they came to check us out, and they took my home telephone number. I don't know if they ever called or maybe,
but it didn't happen.
But when I look at it, I think every time I was supposed to make a breakthrough in football, something outside football went wrong. And as a spiritual person, I believe that maybe that is not the path that was chosen for me. Yeah. So I accepted that and moved into journalism.
Okay. Yeah, soccer is a big story for a black child, even today, but not as much as in our time. But okay, maybe soccer lost something, but journalism and literature benefited.
Can I just say something there?
Yeah,
I think there's this thing called fate. I played football with people who were so talented. So talented. But unfortunately, they never reached the levels that in other societies or under normal circumstances they would have. So sometimes you look back and you see your former colleagues, teammates.
Yeah.
They don't even have half or 10% of the things that you have managed to acquire through your other work. Because they played football with a passion.
Yeah.
Football was for many people an escape. It offered an escape from
For sure.
difficulties. When you finish matric or you drop out, there's nothing else to do. The family doesn't have money to take you to school. So this is the talent that God gave you. Try to pursue it. Unfortunately, football is a very cruel game.
Yeah, it's
so
very difficult.
I look back and I don't have regrets that I never made it in football. I feel that my path was directed elsewhere, and
For sure.
I'm quite content with that.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Journalism, when do you start? Immediately after school? You get into it, you start in radio, you start in newspapers.
Yeah, if you remember, before the 94 elections, 92, 93, 94, there was this big investment by, I think it was the Australian government.
Yeah.
There was a huge investment into community radios. In black townships, even villages.
Yeah.
So I was very fortunate to be among the people who were accepted into Soshanguve Community Radio, which is just 5 minutes walk from my home. There were lots of us. So I started there, formal journalism training. We were trained, interviewing. I covered, one of the stories I covered was Nelson Mandela's rally, election rally. Then it was called TUT. TNT, Technical Northern Transvaal. It's now called TUT. So I never went on air because at the time, it's the time when I was busy with football, studies, and I had to choose football or radio. So I decided to choose football, and I dropped out of the training program. But the seed was planted already. So I was very fortunate that in 96, I got an internship at Sunday Times. And that really opened the world for me. Because when you come from Soshanguve, the world you know is the world around you.
Of course,
But now I get into this internship, I start traveling to Venda, KZN, Free State. And I got really addicted to my work because I think the conditions that people were living under at the time. I mean, my editors at the time were saying, you write so well, you should do showbiz. And I refused. I said, no, I don't want to do showbiz. I want to write people's stories, especially rural-based stories. And that's what I really pushed to do. So 96 November, started my internship there with Leslie Mufugeng was part of the team. BBK, Korjas, amongst others. So those guys were already enrolled for degrees or diplomas, so they were still to finish. I had done just the 11-month certificate. So in February, the Sunday Times came to me and said, Ponna, we really love your work. You have a lot of potential, but we want to send you to varsity. We feel that you need more training. We want to send you to roads. You'll come and work here during the weekends. Then I said,
you are not going there.
No, I refused.
Well, at that time, Sunday Times, Yeah, I don't understand, because at that time, I think journalists, if you were talented enough, you were able to get into journalism without a tertiary education.
Yes.
Most of us, we started like that.
Yes.
Then if you are able to continue, you continue without, there was no problem with that. It means they were starting to professionalize everything as early as that time.
Yeah.
Yeah. But now, your writing style and you like this long form of writing, feature writing, is detailed. No wonder we're writing books now. Well, what was the influence? Did you read too much of the drum era? Because that was the golden time of journalism.
The golden generation.
It's a golden generation. When you have a drum magazine or a pace magazine in the 80s, early 90s, it was worth the money.
Ngosi and the Pace Gang.
It was worth it, man.
Look, I think I was very fortunate, like I said earlier, to be surrounded by books and literature generally. I read many people. There are writers. When you are reading as a youngster, you don't really read with the intention of learning.
Yeah.
You're just enjoying.
Enjoying the writing.
You're just going on a journey. I mean, I read this gentleman. He was a columnist for the City Press and Drum magazine at some point.
Yeah.
His name was Obed Musi.
Obed Musi, yeah.
His column was called Musing.
Yes.
That guy wrote so beautifully. He wrote such humor, dealing with serious issues, but he was such a beautiful writer. I was reading Drum, Stan Muchuadi, Kaiser Ngwenya, who I ended up working with actually at Drum. I mean, imagine seeing your hero and his desk is next to you. It's like, wow.
Yeah.
So, one book that really had an impact on me and really changed my outlook on life and writing in particular and journalism. My brother was studying at Vista University in Mamelodi.
Okay.
So one day he brought a book home with a very funny cover of a guy with wrinkled forehead.
Yeah.
It was written, The World of Kentemba. I can tell you that book changed my life and influenced the kind of writing I do even today, because I thought, wow, man. It just took me into another world. The way he used these words, the way he was cynical, he was funny. And I said, I want to be like this guy.
Yeah.
And that's when I started doing more research about the Drum guys. And I would say my influence came from there. But I was reading a lot of people. You mentioned Fred Khumalo. When I started at Sunday Times, Fred Khumalo was my news editor. And he had a column called Close Up.
Yeah.
And I used to follow his writings. I think he won the V.O. Mattel Short Story Award.
Yeah.
And I wrote short stories myself, although I got to get published later on when I was already in journalism.
Yeah,
so I think that time I was just learning. So those people really influenced me. And one of the people whose writings, when you look at this book, The Sacred Hills, one of the people that has really had a huge impact, I don't know if it's her or Kentemba, number 1, number 2, they're there. Bessie Head. What a writer, man.
Yeah.
I remember my cousin, he was staying in Uputatswana.
Yeah.
It was just across the railway line from our home, but it was another country. So their curriculum was different from ours.
Yeah.
And my cousin brought home a novel called When Rain Clouds Gather. I took that book, I started reading, and then I ran away.
Yeah.
I went to hide somewhere in the yard so that no one would find me, because I was
fascinated and intrigued.
The writing, slow, simple. You can't put that book down. And then I started following Bessie Head. Fortunately, in Matric, we read Maru.
Oh, you did Maru in Matric?
Yes. A Question of Power.
Yeah.
Yeah, but Bessie Head and Kentemba really had, literally, had a massive impact on
No, I came across Bessie Head in Matric. Maru. We're doing Maru. And I had the best time of my life because
The rains were so late that year.
yeah, it didn't feel like you preparing for an exam. You know those books when you read them because you're going to write about them. It's different than when you're reading for leisure and
You're watching a story unfold.
exactly. And I don't know how many times I read that book. Even after matric, I revisited it and I read it. And yeah, she was a great writer. No wonder you were influenced by her writing amongst those people. Yeah.
Yeah, they were a special generation, I think. Because when you think about it, there was no internet.
Yeah.
There were
Yeah.
no resources. English was not their first language.
Yeah.
Stories of African people by African people were really suppressed. When you look at most writers of that era, African writers,
Yeah.
mostly they wrote about politics in a manner that I think Bessie Head and Kentemba wrote about politics. But they made it so practical.
Yeah. Yeah.
They made you see how what you perceive as a normal way of life is actually influenced by other things, policies that are made
Exactly.
by the state and so on. So those two people really had an impact on me. That's why there were many others because we were writers then. I think, for instance, when I go to the Sunday Times, the newsroom was full of senior people
Yeah.
there. So for your story to get into the paper, it had to be really good. You just
It's
didn't get your
competing
story-
with very
Yes.
good stories.
You just didn't get the story into the paper because you had written it.
Yeah. Yeah.
No,
yeah.
it had to be really good, and they had to take a decision. Hey, no, let's use this one and not that one. So you had to fight, you had to work hard. So we had to read, research, make sure, spell check, everything. So I think as time went on, you develop your own style, you develop your own passion.
Yeah. Yeah.
So those are the principles that we still apply today. When you write, make sure this is
Yeah.
at least what you see as a final product is 99% of what you wrote. Not that it's going to be
It looks different.
rewritten and
You can't even
you
recognize
only
your story.
recognize your byline. No.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But there are two ways to that because sometimes it could be, well, you've not done your job, then the editor has got to rewrite your work. But sometimes there are editors, I'm not sure if you've come across them, who really kill your voice. In every opportunity they get, they just want to kill your voice.
Yeah, I was very fortunate to have good news editors. Fred Kumalo, Edith Bulbring, Peter Malhebe at Sunday Times.
Yeah.
It was a super desk there. They really worked hard to ensure that you get, when you write a story this week, next week your story should be better than the one you wrote last week.
Yeah, yeah.
So, and the editors then were not as kind as editors today because
Yeah.
if you have written nonsense, they would let you
Yeah,
know
it's
in the middle of the
nonsense.
newsroom.
Yeah.
Lucas, what nonsense is this? And you don't want to be embarrassed like that. So you made sure that you write your story, you check everything, you print the story, you sit down with a red pen, go through it, then you show
check
your
it.
colleague next to you, say, hey, what do you think? And then we exchange stories. And that's how we learned.
Yeah, true.
Yeah.
True.
So nothing was easy. We had to really, really work hard. Sometimes you're writing a story, you leave the office. Sometimes I used to sleep in the office, actually. Yeah, sleep in the office because I've been working on a story until
late.
late midnight, after midnight, and you realize, I have to be at 9 tomorrow. I still go to Pretoria. It's best I stay here.
Yeah. And continue.
And when the news editor comes in the morning, the story is ready because you really want your story to be in the paper, you know?
But you have tried. You're still trying to keep journalism as it was, in terms of writing, in terms of the way stories are packaged and researched, and the final product. But you've seen journalism is becoming shallow with time. It's changing, man. It's no longer. It's no longer as deep, and the writing you don't see the passion anymore. Stories, the way they are being told, they are told in a very short format. You know, the writing style, man. You know the story that if you read it, it takes you to the place. just sort of absorb you. You're trying to keep that kind of journalism. It's dying, but you're keeping it. How important is that we should really, journalism should remain journalism as it were?
Yeah, I think the dynamics of social media, internet, the fast sharing of information has created a challenge in the sense that now we are in a rush to be the first with the news. We are in a rush to get more clicks.
Yeah.
Our stories.
Yeah.
So in doing that, we forget to do the basics.
The quality is compromised.
Yeah. So I want to believe that if you look at newspapers like New York Times, newspapers in the UK, and so on, you'll see they have retained that quality of writing. And it is important for us to do the same, because nowadays you cannot take readers for granted. In 1960, for instance, there were very few people with a university degree.
Yes.
Today, you have hundreds of thousands or millions of university graduates.
Yeah.
So you can't take them for granted with shallow information. So you need to dig deep. Tell them something new that they don't know. Or tell them a story in a manner that makes them coming back, that keeps them coming back. Because if you just go through the motions, and people don't have time. There's information overload. People are doing so many things. So if you are writing a story or a book, you're asking people to take their time to read your work.
For sure.
Why must they read your work again and again and again if you are not giving them quality? So I believe the future of journalism, especially print journalism, because with online journalism, it's okay. You can write a short story, say this is what happened, so that the world knows. Yeah. But when it comes to print, if I buy a newspaper on Sunday, and I want to sit under the tree and eat watermelon and read, I must really find the writing and the level of information, new information, quite engaging. Yeah. Which is what I think made newspapers what they were until recently. There's a newspaper called the Financial Times Weekend. Yeah. It's a very expensive newspaper. Yeah. But when you buy that paper, you know you're going to get value for your money. Because they write so well. The people who are writing, you can tell, these are experienced people. Yeah. The photographs, if somebody there's a column there where they interview newsmakers, and the writer takes along an illustrator. They don't use pictures, they do an illustration. That shows how serious they take this thing. So the owners of the publications invest money in human resources, in skills, and in talent. Yeah. Because once you do that, you know you are building a very strong brand. Yeah. So when it comes to the quality of writing, for us to keep the readers coming back for more, we really need to push to another level so that they keep coming back. I remember there was a time when people, Sunday morning, people are sending their children to the stores to buy newspapers.
To buy newspapers, yeah.
The first thing the father would do is to turn the paper to check match report, spot. Chiefs was playing Pirates yesterday. They read the match report by Skolasilo or Thomas Kwenaide, and they put them there in the stadium. You see, because yesterday they were at work or busy with other things. They couldn't go to the match because football was not really broadcast as much as it is now. Yeah. So the newspaper gave people an insight into the world. They would turn to politics pages and read about.
Yeah, for sure. But now, media houses are investing resources. I mean, journalists would spend a week, if it's necessary, doing one story, but now it's seen as a waste. You've got to produce so many number of stories. There are no resources, and obviously that will compromise quality. You cannot produce a really good story in a village where you just drive in, you are there in an hour, then you are out. You know,
it goes back to what I said earlier about trying to get clicks and squeezing as much as possible from journalists. And journalists have to tweet, to post on Facebook, take videos, interview, write stories for online, write stories for print. So I think due to the lack of resources and money, sometimes that is unavoidable. But the downside of it is that it compromises quality. I remember
a great deal,
journalists who would write one story a week. There was a guy who was really one of our role models.
Yeah.
His name was, he's still writing, Chris Barron, Sunday Times. He did one story a week.
Yeah.
A feature.
Yeah.
When you read that, you see the research, the level of research that went to that, the understanding of the subject matter. You really looked forward to reading what has this guy written this week, even if you are not interested in the subject matter. But the presentation, the writing,
it attracts you.
Wow, when you say one day I want to reach this level. So the issue of money and resources and the fact that media houses have shed so many jobs and people have to do the work of more than one people has had a huge impact on the quality of the product that we produce. I hope it can be reversed, it can be addressed. In the US, UK, the specialist writers, somebody who covered the thriller in Manila, Ali and Foreman in 1974. In 2014, they're still writing. They have institutional memory.
Of course.
You cannot expect a graduate from 2020 to be at the same level as that guy.
No, you cannot,
So, in South African media, we have lost so many experienced, capable writers and journalists because of the issue of remuneration, maybe working conditions. People feel that, hey, you know what, I can't work under these conditions. I can't be tweeting and doing, let me just go elsewhere and find other ways of making it.
But also another thing, you mentioned the issue of the paycheck. You need to go to management to earn better. I mean, generally, other careers as well. I'm a good mathematics teacher. My students are passing. But for me to earn better, I should strive to be a school principal. I must move up the ladder. And only to find there, I'm not a good manager, because there you have to be a manager now. We are no longer teaching.
It's the same thing with journalism. Some of us, we find ourselves in editorial positions, as editor of what. But in reality, when you look at it, there are people who are best suited to do that. There are people who are best suited to just telling stories. But for you to earn better,
you've got to.
So when you are 21 years old, you can't be earning the same as somebody who's 50, because they have different responsibilities, more responsibilities, and so on. So it's called a skills drain. Now, I'm actually surprised when people call me a veteran journalist, because I consider myself still as just a journalist, because I consider other people that came before me as veteran journalists. So that says a lot about the skills drain, the level of skills drain, people that have left. In other countries, there are political correspondents You can just pick up the phone and call the president's office and you'll be given an audience because he has been there.
Yeah.
He's respected. His voice carries weight.
Yeah.
We don't have much of that here at home because people come 3 years, 4 years. I mean, a person comes into the newsroom as an intern. After 6 months, they are called a senior journalist. After 1 year, 2 years, they are a news editor.
Yeah.
But they don't have the experience. They might have the ability, but they don't have the experience. So what you are doing, you are actually setting up those people for failure, especially since they just don't get the necessary support.
Yeah, exactly. But you are a journalist. You are also an author. You're writing books. Do you think journalists should be writing more, or should get more into the book space and write books? Because obviously, in any case, they record the first incidents of history.
First draft of history.
Yeah.
Look, I think journalists should explore other forms of telling their stories beyond just the byline in a newspaper or a magazine. Or a news clip on radio or TV. I really believe we need to do that. It's done a lot in... You look at a production house like Al Jazeera. You look at their content, say, wow, man. I wish this could be replicated here. So we should be writing more books. I'm actually disappointed with myself that I have not written 20 books yet, because there's so much to write about in South Africa.
There is,
Fiction, non-fiction especially. I'm a very big fan of non-fiction, even though my latest book is fiction, but it's based on a real historical event. But I want to believe that we have not started really writing or telling our stories. When I go to a bookstore, even a couple of weeks ago, I was at the airport. And I walk. The first place I go to is a bookstore to check, and then I bought a book. But I'm looking at the books, especially non-fiction books, about Africa, South Africans. They're not written by people that look like you and I.
No, not. Because I was surprised. The best book I think I wrote about King Shaka's life was written by a white man. I've forgotten his name, but that was the best book I read about his life, you know.
And there is nothing wrong with white people writing African stories, but there's everything concerning and wrong with African people not abdicating the responsibility to tell their stories. I mean, I'm in Bombela today. As I was driving here, I was looking at the sugarcane fields. I once did a story here, land claim at 10 Bush. And it was a newspaper article, 1,500 words. And I felt, man, this story needs to be told in a book. I later developed the story. I went further to do research. It's in my previous book, A Desire to Return to the Ruins. But still, it's just a small part of a bigger chapter. So I feel somebody must come here and really tell this story, because these are 100 years from now, scholars will need to do reference. They need to find our work. They need to do research. If we are not telling those stories, we're in Bombela, one of the greatest artists to come out of South Africa, Ray Phiri. He passed away. You wouldn't even think that he comes from here or he lived here, because there's nothing that shows. There's no book, there's no documentary. There is no... And I feel that as journalists, especially with the tools that we have today, we should be doing much more.
But another issue one may raise is that I'm a full-time journalist. Already the job is demanding. I wish to write, but I cannot. And you cannot also give up your job and be a full-time writer. Can you survive in South Africa being a full-time writer? You can't. So what needs to be done? Because to encourage more people to write, obviously for their time they need to be compensated. somehow.
Writing is they call it a labor of love.
Yeah.
So if you want to write, you will write. You will make time to write. You can write 30 minutes every day. Next time, 1 hour every day. Next time, 2 hours.
Yeah.
I remember reading an interview when I was still a budding footballer. I read an interview. It really had such an impact on my outlook on life.
Yeah, yeah.
They were interviewing Max Maponyane, Come and Go.
Yeah.
And the interviewer asked him, Max, how have you managed to keep at the top of your game for so long? And I remember the response very well. Max said, discipline. When other players are partying, I'm sleeping and resting. When they are resting, I am training on my own. Because my body is my asset, is my tool of trade.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I try to apply the same principle when it comes to writing and journalism. There are certain things that I've cut out of my life, certain activities, because I consider writing, research as a very crucial part of my life. It's my bread and butter. It's something that keeps me going. So when other people go to the tavern, I stay at home and I read. Or I stay at home and I write.
Yeah.
When people go, and I'm not saying I don't have a social life.
Yeah.
I try to keep a balance, but the priority is always on work.
Yeah.
As you know, I run Mukurukuru Media. Sunday mornings, 6 o'clock, I'm up. I'm working on Mukurukuru Media. I do a whole lot of other things as well.
Yeah.
But I'm researching. I'm finding stories. I share with colleagues. I'm looking for information, and I write.
Yeah.
I edit pictures. So the work is not an extension of who I am. It's part of my life. It's part of my lifestyle. So in between, you have to maintain a balance, play, family, work, and rest. Very crucial.
Okay, very important. But have you ever written a book and what you get in return in financial terms? I know you don't probably not writing for the money, but the satisfaction you get is about telling the story, recording the history for future generations. I mean, that's the most important thing. But have you ever written a book and said, look, this was worth my time in terms of the financial gains?
No.
Not.
No. I doubt out of 10 authors, maybe 5, 3 would say, no, I did make money. My approach to life, look, we all want money. If I wanted to make money from books, I would have written thrillers, sex, drugs, rock and roll. Because that seems to be what society wants or what the market wants. I don't know. It's like when you watch our television screens these days, what do you see? There's never a single production, drama, telenovela, without violence. Guns, kidnapping, drugs. You understand? So if you were to watch those productions, you would think actually that is all there is to South African society, which is not correct. That's why I love these Africans dramas from the Western Cape, which tell authentic stories. There's hardly any violence. They tell authentic stories. Stories of love, stories of family feuds, stories of people really coming together to deal with a societal issue. So for me, I write stories that I hope can have a positive impact on society. Like the book, A Desire to Return to the Ruins. It's about land reform, land claims.
Yeah.
As a journalist, I traveled around the country, meeting people, and I felt, you know what, I'm not doing justice to the story because it's just to this issue. It's just a story in a newspaper which will be written and forgotten. In a book, the book will be in a library.
Yeah.
100 years, 200 years from now, if they don't burn down the libraries.
Yeah.
A book is a very powerful source of reference.
For sure.
Because you then expand, you can explain things that you can't explain in a newspaper because of space issues.
Yeah.
So if I do make money, one day I'll be happy. I'll be grateful I didn't. But if you are motivated by money, then I don't think you will ever sit down and write a book about land reform, because that is a labor of love. Something you do for a purpose.
Yeah, for sure. Well, basically for a very few people, because this is the fact that writers are not able to make money. It's an indication that not enough people are reading.
Yeah, I think...
Or not enough people are prepared to fork out money and buy books.
No, I think writers are not necessarily not making money. They're making some money. Some are making more than others.
Yeah.
But the world has changed. The old model of publishing, where you write a manuscript, you approach a publisher, to me, it doesn't work anymore. That is why this book is self-published.
Self-published,
yes, because that is where everyone is going. It's my story. I want to own it. I want to tell it the way I want. Although you need editors and professionals to work with you, designers and so on. But you own the story. You can also decide how you market the book, where you market the book. Because the traditional way of publishing, I no longer believe in it. Because you write a book, the publisher launches the book, people come, have wine, you have a good conversation, and then the book is taken to bookstores.
Yeah.
How many people visit the bookstore?
Exactly. But do you even get the money? Because I've sent books myself to one bookshop. I've never received a cent from books that were sent there.
Yeah, if you receive the money, you look at the royalties, percentages.
The percentages even was crazy. I was saying to the guy who was publishing me, because I was an upcoming new publisher. I said to him, look, you must review this. But his interest was, I need to build relationship with the bookstores. It doesn't matter. But the percentage was very skewed. They're getting more, I'm getting less, and they're not spending anything in marketing and all of that.
The traditional way of marketing also doesn't work for me. Why can't you sell books at a Shisanya? Exactly. Why can't you sell books at a bus stop?
Exactly.
Why can't you sell books at Shisanyama? Why can't you sell books at a social gathering, at a restaurant?
For sure.
Yeah. So I once interviewed the author of Child of This Soil, My Life as a Freedom Fighter, Ledwaba Mpahle.
Yeah.
And he said, when I'm writing a book, I'm a writer. After writing, I'm a businessman. I carry my books everywhere. I sell to everyone. I try to interest people in my work. And that is what us as authors sometimes don't do enough. It's your work. Market the work, sell it.
We're talking about what affected journalism mostly is obviously now media houses have got to change. They've got to go where the readers are. That's why the digital world has taken over, because readers are on social media, they are there. So you've got to go there to find them. Readers are not going to the bookshops, as you say. They go to pubs, they go to restaurants, they go to stadiums, wherever.
They have book clubs, they have social clubs.
Exactly. Okay. Interesting. Now let's get to the main issue here, the new book, The Sacred Hills. I must say it's a moving. When you read it, it flows, man.
Thank you.
It's well written. Even Mlu here was really impressed
Thank you, Mlu.
by the book, and he has marketed it. I think you need to give him a share.
Okay.
He has marketed it really well. and I'm not sure what he got out of it. What did you get? Because apparently there was benefits that you got from selling this book. What do you call yourself now? Cybersexual. Yeah, he's now cybersexual.
Sapiosexual.
Yeah, because he attracted some intelligent women. So they were saying, hey, man, can we do more further than reading the book? Because we think the same, we think alike. Yeah, I mean, briefly tell us, what is this book about? Well, yeah. It's a novel, it's a fiction, your first fiction book.
Yeah.
Firstly, let's start here. How easy is it to write fiction, non-fiction? Or is it easier to write fiction because probably most of the things is your imagination? Or it's more difficult because you need to have a lively imagination to produce a book that people will read?
Well, you are a storyteller, so I found that, look, I've been writing short stories for many years, published in Drum.
The first time I read about you was the way you do your short stories in Drum.
Okay.
Yeah.
In my experience, I think it is, I won't say easier, I would say it is less challenging to write non-fiction. I think fiction is very, very difficult, very, very challenging. Because in fiction, you are starting with a blank page and you have to create this world, this imaginary world. Even if it could be based on a real event, you still have to build characters. You still have to paint a picture of the environment. The characters must come alive. The reader must hate this character or fall in love with this character so much that when the character dies or something bad happens, then they become touched, moved. So with non-fiction, you are basically, it's an extension of journalism. You are dealing with facts. And everything that you put in the book is based on research and what people say, research documents and so on. With fiction, you start from scratch. You create your own world. So it's very, very challenging. You need to challenge yourself. You need to dig very, very deep to make it also. I don't like the kind of fiction, and I'm not a big fiction reader myself. Because I want to read a book that is believable. So when I read fiction, I like to read thrillers, crime thrillers. Because they keep you on your toes. You never know what's going to happen next. So even if you are writing fiction, it must be believable, which I think requires a lot of skill and discipline.
Of course. Okay, what is this about? Tell us more about the Sacred Hills.
The Sacred Hills.
I've read 3 chapters so far.
Okay.
And
no, thank you. Look, this is a story of resistance, number one. But it's also a story of resilience. And it's a story of love. So the book is based on an actual event that happened in 1854 in the Rwasha Valley when the Voortrekkers attacked Mandebele, and both sides killed a number of people from each side. So I fictionalized the story by setting it in the same area in 1974, where a descendant of the Voortrekkers who came to Rwasha and killed 2,000 Debeles is now also coming there to dispossess their land, which they believe is part of their spiritual being. They can't be separated from the hills. So that is what basically the book is about. But it's not one long monologue of people crying, fighting. It's about love also. There are young people who fall in love. And their love ends tragically when one of them is sent to the gallows for the murder of the white man, the descendant of the Voortrekkers. And the other one decides to end it all by ingesting poison.
Yeah.
So it's basically a story about people trying to hold on to what is theirs. And within that bigger picture, people fell in love, people squabbled, people had fun.
Yeah.
People, human beings are flawed. You know, they showed their flaws. So that is basically what the story is about.
No, not true, because from the chapters I've read, you capture the village life so well. I felt like I was there. You know, whatever is happening there, the people, the way people relate to each other, women praying together, the local soccer team, this young man falling in love, the courtship. You know, you also go into detail what they do during the dark. Okay, that's fine. but you know, the details, man, it's how a story needs to be told. And just to amplify what you were saying, it's a very interesting story. But just sell it a bit more so that people can really look forward to reading it.
So if you read the story, you will find that I use a lot of Tegela language terms. Tegela is a group of languages, Swati, Sindebele Sasenyagato, Silala, Isipata, Sephuti, and so on. Those languages are not recognized in South Africa except for Siswati.
Okay.
And I happen to be a Northern Ndebele speaker. We call the language Somaela. Somaela.
Okay. Now, you're raising another issue. We're going to come back to this. Now, Northern Ndebele, the Southern Ndebele, there's Northern Ndebele. There's a Mandebele of Zimbabwe. What's the link? Is there any link?
The Amandebele of Zimbabwe are descendants of Mzilikazi
from the Zulu.
And then
broke away from the Zulus, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Amandebele, like the Esther Mahlangu, Busisiwe Mkhwebanes, are part of the what is called the Zunda group of languages, which includes Zulu, and other languages. Because when they speak, they use a lot of Z.
Oh, okay.
Izinkomo.
Yes.
But Amandebele or Esther Mahlangu, they wouldn't say izinkomo. They would say izikomo.
Izikomo.
Then us, the Sumaela people, the Lala, Tegela, we say tikomo.
Okay.
So when I speak my language, Amaswati can understand me because we come from the same root, from the great Embo Empire, where we spoke Tegela until people broke away into groups. So because of colonialism and apartheid, people ended up assimilating or assuming identities of communities where they found themselves. Most of our people, for instance, they became Bakhatla.
Okay.
Some became Bapedi. Kekana.
Yes.
It's actually not Kekana. It's Gegana. Because
I saw in the book, I thought about that.
Yes, the real name is Mtombeni. But because of migration, people running away for whatever reason, the group left what is present-day Pretoria. Kwamnyamana. And they ended up in Zebediela. So when the other Ndebele groups eventually met with them, said, hey, baswala bagegile ba. Bagegile, kugegana.
Okay.
Yeah, so ukugega.
Ukugega is from there.
Ugegile. Hey, bagegile bantu. So in the book, I'm using those phrases in the dialogue and some of the words as a form of trying to promote the language. Because there's only one Northern Ndebele grammar book. It was published, written by a scholar called Zir Vogel. It was published in 1959.
Okay.
It remains the authoritative grammar book of the Northern Ndebele. And Zir Vogel stayed amongst the Ndebele and researched their ways of life and the language. Very powerful book. It's a very rare book to find. I think there's only one copy left in the world or in South Africa. So that is what the book seeks to tell. But if you look at the book, it's set in a rural area. Now, if you were to read South African history about resistance, forced removals, land dispossession, you would think that actually those things only happened in Sophia Town and Katomena and Lady Selborne. But rural people were also impacted on a massive, massive scale.
For sure.
But those stories remain hidden. When you look for literature on land dispossession, forced removals, you're always likely to end up with Sophia Town. And District 6. And Katomena and Lady Selborne. But there were so many people. And that, I think that the era of the struggle, of the rural areas, has never been really captured.
It has not.
So in this book, I'm trying to bring that to the fore, to say, hey, the struggle for land was not only about Group Areas Act and so on. It was much bigger than that. But besides that, as people were struggling, they also lived. They fell in love. They got married. They got divorced. They drank. They underwent ceremonies.
Somehow.
And they resisted.
Somehow life went on in spite of the difficulties.
And people were, despite the challenges that they faced, people were happy. They found a way of celebrating and enjoying this life that they lived in, this space that they lived in, because that is all they knew. And even though they lived here and life was hard, they didn't have to have a university degree to know that being forced off your land is an injustice. Because in the book, the government sends it sends a team to annex the land, the Sacred Hills, and turn it into a resort for the sole use of white people. But to the Gegana people there, this place is a holy place. It's part of who they are. Their grandfathers looked after it on their behalf, even the generations before. Now it is being taken away from them. For what? They are being sent to the location. And I think this is something that, when you look at South African society, especially the Group Areas Act, slum clearance removal of the 50s, when government really went for people, forced removals, taking them to locations, destroyed the soul of the African family and the African man and the African woman and the African child. Because in the rural areas, there are certain values. There are certain norms that are followed, that are observed. The mother and father have their own house. The girl children have their own house. The boy children have their own house. There is land. The people live off the land. It is everything to them. They get water from the river. The rivers that were not polluted as they are today. The livestock grazing. They even mined. They were mining things in next to Washa, which is a real place. There's a place called Tin Mine. African people were mining tin. They were mining gold long before the industrial explosion of industrial mining on the Witwatersrand, 1886. So now you take these people who have been living in harmony with nature. They don't have to go to Woolworths to buy peaches or watermelon or mangoes. Those things were there. They had so-called wild fruits, amavilo, mahlazwa, tekwede. They're there. They were given to them by the gods. That is why they were looking after the land. We were not allowed to chop down certain trees. You are not allowed to burn the field. You are not allowed to hunt like a mafia where you come and kill 10 impalas. It was sustainable.
At the wrong season.
Exactly.
The wrong season.
It was sustainable hunting, sustainable development.
Besides, that land gave people also spaces for spirituality. I mean, waterfalls whatsoever.
So in the book, you see there's sacred spaces where not everyone goes there. And then before the rainy season, Nkosi and the elders of the village, they would go and stay there in seclusion to conduct certain rites, to ask for the rain, to ask for a good harvest, and after the harvest, they also go back to thank the spiritual ancestors who say, you gave us good rain, you gave us good harvest. Here is our offering. Thank you. Now, you take these people to matchbox houses in a township. One bedroom. The father, or 2 bedroom, the father and mother have to share same space with children of both sexes. In the location, there is no longer have that spirit of belonging. Everyone comes from there. Now,
you see a different person every day.
It destroyed people. That is why people in the townships, at a certain point, even now, I believe, became so self-destructive. Alcoholism became a problem. Stabbings. People were angry. The people had this anger, but they didn't know how to deal with the anger. Here they are harassed by the authorities. In the village, you have 5 hectares, 10 hectares of land where you cultivate your own food. In the township, you can only, if you remember when the townships were still plant, the elders would try, plant 1 peach tree, 1 vine, a couple of mealies there. You could see that longing for the land, but there's no land. Because for you to do that, to get bigger land, you must go to the superintendent and apply. You'll never be allowed to do those things.
You're talking about this brokenness that you're talking about, which is the reason why the Afrikaners are fighting so much to keep hold of the land, because they don't want to, they know what they did to blacks, how it broke them. And now they're thinking, even with this harmless expropriation of land, with that expropriation, really, this law, they're fighting so hard, because that's basically what they fear, what you're talking about, more than any other thing.
I once interviewed an old man in KwaZulu-Natal during the writing of my book, Desire to Return to the Ruins. And he said, the land is God. So, you don't have land, you are godless.
Godless,
yes,
more or less.
So in the book, I try to deal with the issue of land, really, but also try to show that besides that, people were living. People had normal, there's a character, Dikhang, the village gossip, who knew everything before it even happened. And she's with this group of women, they go to the river to wash and they talk about these things. And that is a normal community. It happens in every society. You know, now it happens in WhatsApp groups.
WhatsApp groups.
And then also I try to deal in the book with the issue of the death penalty. Because 2 main characters end up on death row at different times. I don't think that South Africans have truly come to terms with the death penalty. I once went to the gallows at Kgoshimamburu prison to do a story. And I can tell you, it's one place that I said, I never want to come here again. Because it's a death factory. It's a system that was designed to kill people. It was a meticulous system where they took your weight, they measured your neck to make sure that when they take you up there, those 52 steps, then you will die. You see? So I'm trying to bring it to life, where you put these people there in the gallows, and you can imagine you are given your notice of execution. So, in 7 days,
you are going.
So you are put in a special place, the pot. On the last day, before your execution, they give you money to buy something from the prison store, like a snack or whatever. But the most important meal is the deboned chicken. That is your last meal. That is the last meal you're going to have. So you have a deboned chicken today. Tomorrow morning, you'll be dead.
Gone.
So they say most of the prisoners actually decided to give the meat to others who were not
Yeah.
going to. So I'm trying to deal with those intricacies, try to build a story around that to show the brutality. But also within that brutality was a resilience, because these people are watched 24 hours a day. The warders are standing there on the grill and they make sure that you don't have a belt or shoelaces.
Yeah.
You are not allowed. The system is designed to ensure that you don't kill yourself. They must kill you.
Yeah.
So
Hey.
it's that kind of story with very different twists, turns, and focuses.
It's important for people to know, the younger generation to know exactly how it was happening.
I'm sorry to barge in there.
Yeah.
In our telling of our stories, I think sometimes we miss an opportunity. If you were to go around South Africa finding stories of resistance, you would think there's only people in the ANC leadership who struggled for this country.
Yes.
But there are so many interesting stories of ordinary people who did not belong to any political organization.
Yeah.
Who were just resisting injustice.
Yeah, even in their own individual capacities.
Yes, they didn't belong to any organization. But they resisted. They are there. The stories are there. There are so many people. You come from Mpumalanga. You know the stories of families that took in freedom fighters as they ran away from the country. They took them in, they hid them in the cattle kraal.
Yeah.
And some of them paid a big price. They were tortured, they were detained. But we never hear of those stories. We never tell those stories. Why? You would think that the only people who struggled are about 10 people, Mandela, Tambo, Sisulu.
Yeah.
And it's not their fault. It's the fault of the storytellers, the recorders of history.
Yeah.
Like I was saying earlier, we don't do much to find these stories. So this story, The Sacred Hills, tries to deal with the issue of land and resistance in rural areas in a manner that also shows how ordinary people lived there. And what the uprooting or the pending uprooting from their land really did to their souls.
No, it must be an interesting book. I'll finish it.
Thank you, sir.
Quite soon. I'll finish it quite soon. And people should really, I recommend that the people should buy it, because I've already read the 3 chapters, and it flows really nicely.
Thank you.
The technique of telling the story is also excellent. All the characteristics of a good book are here. Let's move on to talk about your other pieces of writing that you have done. I believe that people, after reading this, they would want to read more of the books that you have written, if they didn't know. You've spoken up a little bit about the returning to the ruins. There are other books that you also wrote, man. Broken. The Shameful Legacy of Gold Mining in South Africa. We are going to kill each other. That's the Marikana story. Also, what you contributed to other books as well. But I'll leave it to you just to tell us a little bit, brief description of the book that you have written, the other books you have written, what are they about? Yeah.
Oh, okay, no, thank you. I've contributed to a number of anthologies. One of them was called Joburg Noir, where I wrote a story called The Airport Tender, which deals with the issues we are dealing with today of tendering and corruption and sabotage, blackmail. And then another short story was In Hauntings, which is one of the stories I really feel strongly about, and I wish one day a filmmaker can pick up that story and turn it into a screen production. It talks about it's called The War Veteran.
Okay.
In our communities today, we have so many broken people who were broken by the struggle.
Yeah.
They went into exile. Some did not. Some stayed at home and became a comrade. But the fruit of freedom became so bitter for them that they struggled to adjust or to find a space in the new South Africa in freedom. So
Yeah.
talk about broken lives. So that story, The War Veteran, is in the anthology called Hauntings.
Very important story to
Yeah.
tell as well, because it's what we see nowadays. There are those people who have really failed to adapt.
They are there in our communities.
But also, they are not able to adapt because of the principles that they have. They feel the struggle is not what they fought for, what they are seeing today. And then they get ostracized, or they just remove themselves away from the rotten system that they see.
They dropped out of school and they became the so-called young lions of the 80s, 70s.
Yeah.
When freedom came, they had no way of recovering that time that they spent fighting for freedom and out of school.
Yes.
But the world did not wait for them. It continues. And they have to navigate. They become what they call ice boys.
So the ice boy is an outcome of...
It's an outcome of that. I mean, you see someone who was a very active comrade in the 80s. Now he's being sent to buy ice and cigarettes by young boys who were in boarding school, by the way. Some of them are children of prominent politicians who said, liberation first, education later. So in that context, people from poor families dropped out of school to pursue the struggle. But the politicians knew. They took their children to boarding school, Eswatini, in the homelands. But they were saying the homelands are run by apartheid puppets, but they were sending their children to school there. So when those children come back, 1990, 92, 93, they're educated, they're well equipped. The ones who stayed home to fight,
they're just been pushed away.
Unemployed,
they're useless,
unemployable, and nobody really cares about them. And then I also contributed to Black Text, edited by Nick Mhlongo, a very, very controversial subject, which talks about how families in African Black societies expect their children to look after them, look after the extended family. And I wrote about my own experience at home. That's how we grew up. My home was like a United Nations, because everyone would come there from the rural areas, people looking for work, people who didn't have documents, some would get arrested and the family must bail them out, people who were looking for opportunities to study. So I don't believe in the term black tax in that context. I think there is a black tax, but in that context, I think it's socialism. Because when you go to other societies, that is how people live. We uplift each other, we build each other. Now we are retreating into our cocoons. We are becoming individualistic to a point where when life is so hard, I can't go anywhere. I have no support system because everyone has built walls around them. You understand? That is why now I was watching these students who didn't get money from NSFAS sleeping in the street. It never used to happen in African societies. Never. The families would come and take in those children. Say, garage until this thing is sorted out. And that to me was an eye-opener to say, we have lost something as a people. We have just become about me. Even if you check social media, posts are about me.
No, it's so bad. It's so bad. You're touching on an issue that I feel strongly about. As neighbors, we don't speak to each other. We don't know what is happening. We don't even know the name of your neighbor. I was surprised the other time. The kids, because kids are kids, you cannot restrict them. So even if you stay in an estate, you don't know your neighbor, they also high, but kids get out, they play together, they are friends, they know each other. So you hear from kids, hey, in that family, somebody has died. In that family, this is what has happened, because kids are free spirits. But I was surprised one time, a kid came. I felt like the real life that, that we so love, we need to go back to the way we live. The kid came, is a white boy, is a friend of my daughter, comes and says, at home there's no sugar. They're just asking for sugar. And then I didn't see that first incident. Then he came back again and said, my mother says thank you. But we've never seen the mother, we've never seen the father, the kids are friends. And then, that situation happened. In rural areas, if you don't have salt, before you buy it or you don't have money, you go to the neighbor. Even meal, you don't have meal, you just go to the neighbor, you ask, you return it. Sometimes you don't have to return it.
You don't have to return it.
Yeah, just your point. Very important.
I think our generation, I remember one time I was staying in a complex in Roodepoort, and I was watching my children being taught to swim by children of different racial groups. But what was interesting is that us, the black parents, and the parents of these kids are not mixing.
Yeah.
We seem to have this barrier between us. We seem to be afraid of each other. But when you look at those children, the freedom,
these kids.
They are just kids. These ones are teaching these ones to swim. These ones are teaching these ones language. And you look at it and say, okay, these children are the future. We are the past. We are part of the past. We are part of, we carry a baggage from the past. So these ones do not have that baggage, do not carry that baggage. They are just free-spirited people, normal people who are living in as a kind of society that should have been there long ago in our country. Because when you go to the rural areas, to farms, even though there were human rights abuses on farms, white children, black children grew up together.
They grew up together,
They ate the same food. Eugene Tereblanche, the racist right-winger, he spoke fluent Setswana. He was, I think in his heart of hearts, he considered himself more of a Motswana than a Boer. Because he was socialized in that way. Even the people there called him by a Setswana name, Morena. They called him Morena. And he spoke to African people in Setswana. And he spoke to them like a human being, not as the racist that came to life when he came before the cameras. So I think one lesson there is that as human beings, as a society, we should not allow politicians to take control of every aspect of our lives or every aspect of life in our society, because they have their own agendas, they have their own issues, because they can insult each other in public today. In the evening, they have whiskey together and laugh about it.
You would get surprised.
But you and I, we are in the street to kill each other because I support this one, you support this one said this, but they don't kill each other.
You get surprised, that's the thing. Okay.
With my books also, I was going to tell you about the Marikana book.
We
are going to kill each other today. The Marikana story we published in 2013. Very difficult book to write. There were about 6 of us there. But what was difficult about writing the book is that we wrote the book at a time when there was a judicial commission of inquiry into Marikana. So it was very difficult to get information. So most of the...
because people still had to testify before the commission. So,
And also with the Marikana, there was a feeling that you must take sides. Either you support what the police did,
or you don't.
Or you support what the workers did. So it was a very difficult book to write. People were afraid to come out and speak. People were very guarded, and there was a lot of mistrust as well. People didn't trust us. So, I mean, the massacre took place in August 2012. The book came out in August 2013. It was a turnaround time of like 11 months. And publishing a book like that within that very short space of time was challenging, but it taught us quite a lot. And there was no time to take leave and say, no, I've taken leave to write a book. No. We were writing the book as we went along, And then in 2016, I published Broke and Broken, The Shameful Legacy of Gold Mining in South Africa. Yeah. When we started that book, I worked with Leon Sadiki, who did the photography in the book. We didn't have money because I followed this case. There was a lawsuit, class action in the High Court. And I read the affidavits. I mean, I was so touched, man. There's the experiences of those men being taken from villages, put into a steam engine, to hostels that were terrible, and then they work underground. And after 20 years of earning almost nothing, they are sent home because they are no longer of value to the landlords, to the mining bosses. And they go home. All they do there is to wait to die. So I discussed with Leon. I said, man, if I don't write this story, if we don't do this story, history will judge us harshly. We need to do this story. So we didn't have money. Most of those people came from Lesotho, Eastern Cape.
You had to travel all over.
So we didn't have money. So I said, you know what? I don't like this thing of applying for funding and say, I want to. I want to apply to a funder and say, I am doing, and this is what I have done already.
They find you along the way.
Along the way. So I sold my car. I had a second-hand car, Honda Ballet. And I sold it, and we used that money to travel to the Eastern Cape. We didn't take leave. Weekend, Friday afternoon.
You would go?
We drive. If you know Lusigi, Flagstaff, those places are very far. We drove. And then we did interviews, pictures, and then we did 3 chapters. Then we started applying for funding. Fortunately, we got funding from the Taco Caper and Ringumalo. That's
But you had to make a sacrifice, sell your car.
If you don't,
the book will not be here, basically.
I don't believe in this thing of saying, hey, I want to do this,
but I don't have the money.
Then what? And I think that is something that has crept into our society today. We rely too much on government to do things for us. I'll give you an example. Government gives you an RDP house. The door handle breaks. You don't replace it. So you're waiting for the government.
Must come to
There's a communal tap. The handle there is broken.
You don't fix it.
The water gushes throughout the day and night. Or they use plastics and so on. So you say, but a tap costs 20 rand. In a community of 50 households, even if they decided they must all contribute, why don't you contribute and buy a tap and replace it? So I don't believe I think that mentality needs to change.
True.
We must go back to how it was. Yes, the state has a responsibility to look after its citizens, but certain things, we must do them ourselves. I grew up in the 80s in Soshanguve.
Yeah, but as we were talking, we were broken to a point where we cannot do those things anymore.
But in the 80s, there was more repression. But there were women's sewing clubs. They would sew school uniforms and sell them at a reduced price.
Yes.
There were baking clubs.
Yes.
We had football clubs.
Yes.
I mean, when I was playing for Liverpool, not the Liverpool, Bruce Grobler, the Liverpool Elokshi. We had one soccer ball. Imagine 60, 70 of us. But we found a way of sharing those resources. People organized events, beauty contests.
Yes.
Community choirs, not school choirs, community choirs, theater.
And there was support for that.
Now if you ask an average young person, guys, what are you doing for yourselves? government doesn't want to fund us.
Government this, government that. Yeah.
We must be realistic. Some of the things we must do them ourselves. If government wants to come on board, they'll find us along the way. So that's my mentality. So we broken. We said, let's sell the car, let's make a sacrifice. And we have the book today. It sold very well. And it has been cited. It got very good reviews. It has been cited by researchers, academics. And I want to believe that 200 years from now, it will be even more important to that generation, because
Surely
they will come back and say, oh, so this was the issue.
Yeah. No, very. Yeah, it's a very important. Actually, the books you've written are very important.
No, thank you.
Very important ones. Even this one is, call it a fiction, but it's based on a true story, and it enlightens people on a number of issues, like you have highlighted the issue of this resistance against forced removals. Clearly, the atrocities, the what you call capital punishment. It highlights all those issues, So, any books, new books in the pipeline?
I spent some couple of years doing research into the life of the late Dr. Philip Tabane Malombo. That is the next project I want to do.
Okay.
But there are so many others that sometimes I get depressed when I think that, maybe I should have started earlier, or can God please give me 100 more years in this world so I can write more.
So that you can write more.
Yes, because that is my... And with this book, The Sacred Hills, the way I wrote the book, I really wish that people with different skills now we have filmmaking is no longer as difficult as to us in the past. The equipment is there. Stage play. Our book, Marigana the Musical, was adapted into a stage play by the South African State Theatre. I think that play remains one of their most successful in their history. Yes.
Wow. Okay.
So that is where I'm coming from. I'm saying there are people who do not necessarily want to read a book. They want to see the story unfold before their eyes.
Yeah, it needs to be told in many ways. I mean, those who don't want to read, then they have to get the story in another format.
But also, I want the book to be, all the books I've written, I want them to be translated into indigenous languages. Because when I go to Eastern Cape to give Utatum Gide, who is on the cover of our book, to give him a book and say, Tata, yakumbula ndafika apa, kaninzi nthetha nawe, nanzi incwadi. He should be able to read it in his own language.
Yeah.
You see, I remember the first time we went to Lusigisi, we interviewed Mr. Gide. As a very, very sickly man, he was sitting outside, couldn't breathe properly. Journalists had been there before, to newspaper story,
come and go.
Activists. Yeah. But this guy, his face just lit up when Zianda introduced. Zianda is the legal officer who worked with the claimants in the lawsuit. And said, no, these people have come here to interview you as we spoke. And then I spoke to him in Xhosa.
Yeah.
Could see his face lighting up. And he said, you know what, I'm so happy today because I'm talking to someone who speaks my language. Someone who looks like me. Thank you.
Yeah.
So, language is a very powerful tool and it's
very important.
I think we need to get to a stage where we really push our indigenous languages to a very high level. Because if we don't, the languages will disappear. Our language.
How do you do that? Because obviously the language of business, the language of government, in our case in South Africa, whether you like it or not, is English.
Yes, it is.
But also, the fact that we are so diverse in South Africa with all these languages, it's important that at least there should be languages that everybody can speak and everybody can understand. But now that creates a situation where one language is more superior than the other. which is a problem. But also, where do we send our kids to school? They learn English. They've got to learn English when they're still young. They don't do much about. They don't learn much about the languages. The subjects are in English. They are never taught in Swati or Zulu or whatsoever. We're facing a difficult problem here.
Let's keep English as a business language.
Yeah.
But when it comes to literature,
Yeah.
excuse me, let's use our indigenous languages. Our children will learn English in school. Look at the Afrikaners. They even have a monument in Paarl, the Taal Monument. They work so hard to keep the language alive, the literature, the arts, even stage productions, television productions. They even conduct business in Afrikaans, although these days they have to also adapt and use English because of the diversity issues. There are languages that are considered extinct in South Africa.
Yeah.
Isilala.
You spoke about a few.
Sephuthi.
Yeah.
Our language, Usumayela, Sindebele sasenyakatho, is spoken widely in certain parts of the country.
Yeah.
And I remember when I was growing up in Soshanguve, in my homestead, when you walked through the gate, you spoke no other language. You spoke Sindebele. And that was the way of the elders to keep the language alive.
Oh, okay.
But if we don't, and most Ndebele homes do that, there are people actually even today, especially the older generation, they refuse to speak Sesotho or Sepedi. They speak Sindebele only, even when you go to funerals, weddings. So that is good. It's spoken. You don't need a government to recognize your language for you to speak it. But if it is not written and recorded, chances are high that it will become endangered as time goes along and could become extinct. That is why UNESCO has declared 2023 to 2033 as the International Decade of the Mother Tongue. And they are warning that there are lots of languages in the world which are endangered and will eventually go extinct if they are not protected, developed, and recorded. You can imagine you go to Egypt. They speak English also, but the first language is Arabic. I was there, I spent a month there. I had to learn Arabic because you speak to them in English.
They don't understand, it's Arabic.
Okay, they understand, but they want you to speak to them in their language. And actually, when you speak to someone in their native indigenous language, it opens doors. People welcome you, say, oh, wow, he's trying. They laugh at you, you know. So I think we need to have that concerted effort by the relevant bodies to support the development and recording of indigenous languages. There are so many works that can be translated, written, recorded, because we're not doing this for ourselves.
So, the mother tongue language issue is very important, but so many university researchers have advocated for mother tongue language to be taught in schools, especially the young ones when they start school. They've advocated for that, basically saying that children when they learn in their mother tongue, they're able to grasp the subjects better. It's better for their future development. Then the English or English Afrikaans can be introduced a bit later, maybe from grade 3, grade 4, those standards.
Yeah, I always ask the question, what is the best-selling car in South Africa? You could argue that it's Toyota or VW. Where is Toyota made? It's made in Japan. When the Japanese make Toyota, which language do they speak? When the Germans make BMW or Mercedes,
which language do they speak?
Or VW, they speak German. Under apartheid, Afrikaners were taught from primary school, from nursery school in Afrikaans. They even built a university, Randse Afrikaanse Universiteit, RAU, which was giving lessons in Afrikaans. So, a child who has spoken Afrikaans from birth, nursery school, primary school, high school, university, does not have to deal with the challenge of first understanding the language. When you come from Soshanguve, at home you speak Sindebele. And then you go to school, now they teach you physical science in English. Before you deal with understanding what they are teaching you, the theorems and so on, you have to deal with the issue of language. Doesn't that put you at a disadvantage?
Of course.
So, if the Russians can build a submarine speaking their language, Tina, what stops us from doing the same?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So if the Japanese can build this powerful camera called Nikon in their language, the Swiss built cell phones in their language, laptops. What stops Basotho from building a car in Sesotho? Nothing. Nothing at all. So we are conditioned to think that if you speak English, then with a certain twang, then you are educated. But that is not actually correct.
No,
I was invited once in Mokopane at a cultural event to talk about my book and the issue that we're talking about, Mandebele language and so on. So they read my profile. This guy, his work has been there, the USA. He's written books. He has exhibited photographs. He has won this award. And I stepped up. I went to the podium and I started speaking Gesindebele from start to finish. Now, at the end of my talk, this old man came to me and said, Hemon, I'm shocked. Because I thought the way they described you, even the way they told us before you came here, I thought you. And I said, no. English is not a measure of intelligence or knowledge. Ntelapha kutosumayela nebantu ngesindebele. Nje kutabanjani sumayela nabo ngesindebele. Ge mulando wesindebele. Kaphela nsumayela ngesikhuwa.
Nesikhuwa,
Yabona? So I think that is one of the legacies of colonialism that we have to deal with. If you go around Africa, you always face a challenge. You travel from South Africa, you go to Senegal. They speak French. Is French an African language?
No, it's not.
Then you travel from Senegal, you go to Angola. It's Lusophone. They speak Portuguese. You see, and I think we need a business language, yes. But somehow, we need to find a way of ensuring that we promote indigenous languages.
Preserve them,
we promote mother tongue education. Yes.
Yeah, because knowledge is knowledge after all, no matter which language it is. It's just knowledge.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Look at the issue of herbalists. Most herbalists, abantu abadala, they don't know English at all. But they know which herb to use for which condition, which herb to use for each condition, and they call it by the indigenous name.
Exactly.
Today, I don't think the majority of us know the herbs in our indigenous languages. We just know, hey, this is alu, this is African potato, this is... We don't know the real name.
We don't. True.
So we are slowly losing that knowledge. And it is very, very worrying because 1976, the students protested because they didn't want to be taught in Afrikaans. But what is interesting is they said they want to be taught in English. Why not in Sesotho or Sizulu or Stebele? Why did we choose English? Why couldn't English just become part of the curriculum as a language of business?
Hey,
So we rejected one colonial language,
we promoted the other.
promoted another. You can even argue that Afrikaans is actually even more indigenous than English.
Of course, it
Yes.
is.
It's the most spoken language in the country after isiZulu. So our mental conditioning, mental outlook also has to change.
Yeah.
We need to find a way where we say, masithi singamaswati. Sathi ukuthi ngeSiswati ngiyawathi ukuthi ngingene e-studio ngikhuluma iSiswati ngicele leli jaha leli ukuthi awunginike lento le ngikhuluma ngeSiswati ibe nelegama leSiswati yabo
Kunjalo. No, that's what it is. Okay. No, thanks a lot. But do make sure ke ukuthi incwadi osibhalile ziyahumusha nesiZulu, nesiXhosa, nesiSotho. Yeah. Do make sure, please.
Swahili.
Even Swahili, yeah, of course.
Swahili,
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Even Afrikaans.
Even Afrikaans, yes. Yeah, okay. No, before we part ways, how can people get your book, your new book? How do they get it? It's self-published, obviously. You don't get it in bookshops? You don't, do you? No.
No, it's not in bookstores yet. You can order the book directly from myself. I'm available on social media. Styles Lucas Ledwaba. I'm also available on social media, Mukuru Media. You will see the details on the screen. You can order the book directly from me. And the book is also available on online platforms, Amazon, Draft to Digital. Actually got a message from someone in Kenya. They downloaded the book and said they're going to start reading.
Okay.
So it's available all over the world. I hope it's also available on the moon. Yeah, so...
Yeah.
Cesar, I would like to actually really take this opportunity to thank you for giving me this airtime to talk about my work, to talk about the book. I truly appreciate that, and I wish that this podcast can grow and grow and grow. Like Bob Marley said, he said, this music will grow big and big and big until it reaches everyone.
Yeah, for
I think
sure.
we are doing good work, and as writers in South Africa, we are grateful for this kind of opportunities, because remember where we come from. Literature was suppressed, our stories were suppressed, there were only certain stories, and literature was not accessible to the ordinary person. So, with the work that you are doing, I really appreciate, because you are giving us authors an opportunity to reach as many people as possible.
No, that's fine. It's my way of giving back to you, because you really inspired me, truly speaking.
Thank you,
I'm even inspired by you. I'm surprised you've written so many books, and I've been trying all of my life to write books, and most of them are not finished. But I have a gift for you. You inspired me. That this book would not be here if you didn't inspire me. So
thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Yes. I've read an extract of the book, and I think you a very brave journalist, and I would recommend the book to especially aspiring and practicing journalists, because it exposes the world beyond the headlines and how us as journalists go through the West to bring some of the hidden stories to the world. So thank you so much for writing the book, and thank you for the gift. And my wish is that you continue with your work and continue to tell more authentic Mpumalanga stories.
Yeah.
Diyabulela kakhulu.
No, ngibonge kakhulu. There you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Please do not forget to subscribe, like us. Our details will appear on the screen, read people's eye. Also remember that if you've got a business product or service you want to promote, you can contact us, then we can make a plan. We have a business feature, entrepreneurship feature called the People's Hustle here. So yeah, you just contact us. Thanks a lot. Until next time.